So my name is Renee McKenna, and I'm a therapist and shamanic healer. And I'm here with C. Michael Smith, who will talk about himself and what he does, a very similar work that we do. And we are going to do a series on depossession and extraction, some of the most powerful and transformative work available through shamanic practice. And I consider myself, the wording is negotiable, but like neo-shamanism is probably the best blend of the incredible power of shamanic technique to be blended with the best of Western psychology to be able to provide healing for people. So we want to offer information and insight into these really kind of woo-woo practices from a lot of people's standpoint that are incredibly accessible and healing. So why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump in.
All right. Thank you. It's good to see you again, Renee.
You too.
I'm C. Michael Smith. I'm a clinical and analytical psychologist and shamanic teacher, practitioner. And I call what I do psycho-shamanism because I'm kind of blending the two. I think you are too, actually, Renee, disciplines. But essentially, we pretty much do anything a shaman does, but also pretty much anything a psychotherapist does. So Jungian psychology is very aligned with shamanism, and Jung had a kind of psychological experience when he was at midlife, and it transformed his life, and his psychology came out of that experience. So it's very easy to shift from one system of knowledge to the other. They're very similar. And we're going to say something about shamanism too, I think. You want to take that one?
Sure. So shamanism is probably the most ancient, if not one of the most ancient practices for healing, self-knowledge, and gathering of spiritual information and self-transformation that is known to man. It is, different cultures have different approaches and their own kind of cultural trappings and adornment that surrounds it. But the basic access of shamanism, from my perspective, is not in some ways dissimilar to what is available through body-centered mindfulness and a lot of modern spiritual techniques, but the paradigm of it is that in shamanism, historically, the shaman would travel into non-ordinary reality, into other states of consciousness to connect with the energies, the spirits, as they would be called in shamanism, the spirits, guides, and teachers, the elements of nature, to be able to access power, information, and healing possibilities that aren't available in the ordinary reality, is what we call our kind of middle world, middle earth, intellectual, rational consciousness. And historically, you know, a shaman, is a lot of different ways that shamanism, a person could become a shaman. You might be born into it. You might have an ecstatic experience and become that. There's a lot of training, and there's a lot of talk these days about cultural appropriation. And so the essence of shamanism, what Michael Harner of the Foundation of Shamanic Studies called core shamanism, is the basic practice that's kind of available or present throughout all these different cultures, which centers generally around the shamanic journey. And the shamanic journey is using a drum like this. Michael has a big drum. You can see the corner of it in his. So there's lots of different drums to listen to some kind of a repetitive. Oh, is that a gong, not a drum? Well,
it's a big one.
So generally, you listen to some kind of a sound, and that creates a change in consciousness that allows you to travel into non-ordinary reality. Historically, only the shaman himself or herself would do that for the person and do the healing and the gathering for the person, not unlike a Western medical doctor. In some ways, it might do surgery on you. And the way that I know we both have the capacity to work in that more traditional shamanic way. But I know that a lot of our work has also been to teach people to be their own shaman. and that path is accessible, that information, the healing possibility, the access to the larger consciousness system is available to all of us. And that's some of the work that we do, is to bring that to people out of this more ancient tradition that has a hierarchy and more accessible. What do you want to add to that?
I would say there's an enormous creativity in shamanism. Is probably the world's oldest spiritual tradition and also creative arts tradition. I mean, these trance states that shamans have done from time immemorial have been highly intuitive, visionary, and they recite and chant out of this altered state and convey their journey in stories. I mean, it's the origins of epic poetry, of art, of dance, of certainly sacred ritual and ceremony, and the handing down of traditions and so on. Poetry, paintings of the drums and so on, paintings of the body, adornment, regalia. It's enormously creative energy, and shamans are artists of the spirit of sorts, and like to be individualistic, their own person, and express things their own way, even the shamanic things. And I think that's an important part, given the territory we're going to move into.
So, you know, as you speak about that, the word mystic or mystical comes to mind for me. And mystic or mystical spirituality is about direct connection with the divine without an intercessor.
Yes,
Without a church,
right.
without, and you know, again, from my experience and what's exciting for me, I feel like is that that's available to all of us. And I feel like as a species, we're at a place evolutionarily where large swaths of the population actually need to have that mystical direct connection, and that shamanism, the shamanic traditions or the shamanic paradigm offers this really easily accessible path that has been traversed for millennia of humans to connect directly with divinity, or again, the larger, universal spirit, whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness.
Yeah, this is a really good point. Shamanism is distinctive in the sense that it's really the world's first mystical experience, wisdom tradition, and all the great religions are founded on some type of mystical founder who had some type of altered state, altered awareness, and had a vision of the possible for his or her people. And shamanism only differs in that it's not a religion, it's not an organized, institutionalized religion. So there are no priests or mediators, no gurus either, because the whole thing is about your own direct wisdom. You go inside, you journey, you get it yourself, and learning to heal yourself, not depend on some external force. And as I see it, the teacher is there, to use pointers and assist and support that process. Rather than be the ultimate authority on anything.
Right. Well, like in anything, I'm sure that there are shamans who would abuse their power, just like there have been priests and imams and rabbis who would think themselves the only doorway. But ultimately, and you and I both know, and I think we really want to express to people that that doorway is open for everyone. And
that's right.
And that this is a way to pass through that doorway from ordinary reality into the transpersonal realms, which have only our highest good in mind.